this came from a senior member of this royal family, that they were all beside themselves and that the king, it had really affected all of them, but in particular the king pretty severely. And he has been struggling.
The room fell silent before anyone spoke. Prince William stood frozen beside the polished table as Catherine slowly lowered a cream-colored folder embossed with the royal crest. Queen Camilla searched both of their faces, hoping to find even the smallest sign that the emergency meeting had been called by mistake. Instead, she found only grief. Outside the windows, the palace courtyard carried on as if nothing had changed. Inside, every heartbeat seemed louder than the last. The physicians had finished speaking only minutes earlier, and according to confidential discussions described by royal commentators and widely circulated palace speculation, the latest assessment had confirmed what no one in that room had wanted to hear about King Charles. William finally lifted his eyes toward Camilla. The future heir had delivered difficult news before, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Catherine remained unusually quiet, gripping the edge of the table so tightly that her knuckles had turned pale. The silence itself became an answer long before a single word was spoken. Camilla's expression shifted from confusion to fear as she realized this gathering was not another routine medical update. Something irreversible had happened behind the closed doors of the king's private medical consultations.
King Charles smiled and waved to crowds this morning, a day after spending time in hospital dealing with side effects from his cancer treatment. The King's motorcade was spotted leaving Clarence House. He's heading out of London for the weekend. The palace says the King's side effects prompted doctors to bring him in for observation, and he had to cancel some events as a precaution.
Many royal watchers would later speculate that this was the moment the entire direction of the monarchy quietly changed. Not because an official announcement had been released, but because those closest to King Charles suddenly understood that every decision from this point forward would carry enormous consequences. The doctors had spoken carefully. The advisors had chosen every sentence with precision. Yet the meaning remained painfully clear. Nothing inside Buckingham Palace would ever feel ordinary again. Hi viewers, if you believe Prince William and Catherine are right to stand firm during this heartbreaking moment for King Charles, type "I stand with William" in the comments. And if you enjoy following the hidden struggles inside the royal family, please like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who never misses a royal story. Your support helps this channel continue bringing these stories to life. Camilla tried to speak, but her voice refused to cooperate. She searched William's face once more, silently asking him to deny what she already sensed. Catherine reached toward her almost instinctively, then hesitated, unsure whether comfort would help or only confirm the nightmare unfolding before them. According to reports, speculation, and royal commentary surrounding the king's health, the latest medical review had forced senior members of the family to confront possibilities they had desperately hoped would remain distant. William finally broke the silence. "The doctors have completed every assessment they requested." His words landed softly, but they carried extraordinary weight. They believe father's condition has become far more serious than anyone expected. Camilla stared at him without blinking. Her lips parted, but no reply came. The room seemed to shrink around her as every carefully guarded hope began slipping away. Catherine quietly lowered her head. She had promised herself she would remain composed, yet emotion pressed against every attempt to stay calm. Outside the palace, preparations for upcoming engagements still appeared unchanged. Official vehicles arrived and departed. Staff continued walking the familiar corridors. Tourists gathered beyond the gates hoping for photographs. No one beyond those walls knew that inside one private room, the family was confronting a future none of them wanted to imagine. Only hours earlier, King Charles had reportedly insisted that several meetings remain on the official calendar despite concerns raised by those around him. Palace aides had quietly rearranged schedules, shortened briefings, and cancelled private audiences without revealing the true reason. Publicly, everything still appeared steady. Privately, every adjustment pointed toward growing concern. William remembered the subtle warning signs that now seemed impossible to ignore.
This milestone is both a personal blessing and a testimony to the remarkable advances that have been made in cancer care in recent years. Testimony that I hope may give encouragement to the 50% of us who will be diagnosed with the illness at some point in our lives.
During recent weeks, his father had paused longer between conversations. Important briefing papers sometimes remained unfinished. Meetings ended earlier than planned. Moments of exhaustion became harder to disguise. Each individual incident had seemed understandable on its own. Together, they formed a troubling pattern that suddenly made perfect sense. Catherine had noticed the changes as well. She had watched Charles smile warmly during family gatherings, even when fatigue was written across his face. He continued asking about his grandchildren, discussing future charitable projects, and reassuring everyone that better days were ahead. Looking back, those conversations now felt heartbreakingly different. They were no longer expressions of confidence. They sounded more like a man determined to preserve hope for everyone around him. Camilla refused to believe the worst. She had stood beside Charles through public scrutiny, personal challenges, and years of extraordinary pressure. She knew his determination better than anyone. Every instinct told her that he would fight once again. That belief had become her anchor. Letting go of it felt impossible. Then William quietly placed another folder onto the table. It was thinner than the medical report. It was marked confidential. Catherine looked at it for only a moment before looking away again. According to palace speculation, this was not a document prepared by doctors. It had been prepared under King Charles's own instructions, and before anyone else entered the room, William revealed that its contents explained why he and Catherine had been asked to deliver the tragic news personally, instead of allowing palace officials to do it. The explanation inside would change everything they believed about the king's final preparations. The heavy oak doors of the royal medical suite clicked shut, sealing Prince William and Catherine inside a room thick with silence and clinical tension. Before them stood 3 top physicians and the king's private secretary, their faces set in grim expressions that instantly signaled disaster. A single white dossier lay open on the central desk, its contents revealing a truth so devastating that William felt the floor beneath him lose all stability. The latest scans had arrived, and they destroyed every lingering hope the family had clung to over the past months. The lead physician stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper as he pointed directly to the high-resolution images printed on the paper. King Charles's condition had not merely plateaued, it had taken a sudden, drastic turn for the worse. The long-term prognosis was now deeply concerning, indicating a far faster decline than any prior assessment had suggested. Yet the most agonizing revelation was not the disease itself, but the timeline. The medical team quietly confessed that the king had been aware of these worsening indicators for weeks. He had explicitly instructed his doctors to withhold the full severity from everyone, choosing to carry the terrible burden alone while attempting to maintain the illusion of steady progress. Catherine pressed her trembling hand against her mouth, a sharp, choked gasp escaping before she could stop it. The thought that Charles had sat through family dinners, smiled at his grandchildren, and discussed future calendar events while knowing his own body was failing devastated her. William's composure cracked, his eyes burning with a mix of profound grief and intense frustration. He demanded to know how such a critical escalation could be kept hidden, his voice rising as he asked the doctors why immediate interventions were not ordered sooner. The lead specialist calmly explained that the king had exercised his sovereign right to dictate how his care was managed, refusing any measures that might prematurely spark public alarm or derail his remaining royal engagements. The doctors made it brutally clear that the strategy of quiet endurance was officially over. The king's body could no longer handle the rigorous demands of state duties. They presented a mandatory schedule of drastic reductions, warning that if Charles did not step back immediately, his remaining time would be cut even shorter. At that moment, 2 senior legal advisors stepped out from an adjoining side room, carrying leather-bound folders stamped with red operational seals. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly from clinical grief to cold, hard institutional reality. These advisors did not come to discuss medical treatments. They came to execute long-prepared operational contingencies. Spread out across the table were complex legal documents detailing the swift transfer of specific constitutional responsibilities. The machinery of the state was already moving, preparing for a reality where the king was incapacitated. William stared at the papers, realizing with a chill that while his father had been hiding his pain, palace officials and legal experts had been quietly drafting plans for the inevitable transition. Yet despite all the legal preparations and medical briefings taking place in that secluded room, one massive, painful void remained at the center of the crisis.
This is a reminder that this is, a man that is in his 70s, that is having this ongoing treatment for cancer. It's a reminder of how hard it is, and actually how hard he has been working. Perhaps this is a reminder that he needs to take it easy every so often.
Queen Camilla knew nothing about the true results. She was currently sitting in her private sitting room just down the grand corridor, under the impression that this meeting was merely another brief, routine review. The legal advisors suggested calling in senior communications officers to draft a formal statement for her to read alongside an official household announcement, attempting to handle the emotional fallout through standard administrative protocols. Hi viewers, if you were in Prince William's shoes, forced to witness institutional plans moving forward while a loved one suffers in secret, could you ever forgive the officials involved? Leave your thought in the comments right now, because if you walk away without sharing your perspective, you are turning your back on the deep human truths that keep this community alive. Subscribe immediately, like this video, and share it with everyone you know who claims to care about justice and family, because staying silent now means you simply do not care enough about the truth behind these palace walls. William snapped, cutting off the legal team with absolute authority. He refused to allow bureaucracy to dictate how his stepmother learned that her husband's life was slipping away. Catherine stepped beside him, her voice steadying despite her visible tears, agreeing that handing Camilla an administrative memo would be an unforgivable betrayal. The silence returned to the room, heavier and more suffocating than before. The king's private secretary then reached into his jacket and pulled out a small card written in the king's distinct handwriting. He placed it directly in front of William. Charles had personally left written instructions that no doctor, no private secretary, and no official spokesperson was permitted to deliver this news to Camilla. He had explicitly tasked William and Catherine with walking down that corridor to shatter her world themselves. William picked up the card, his fingers tightening around the heavy cardstock as the full weight of the duty settled onto his shoulders. Charles had chosen them because he knew only family could soften the blow, yet the burden felt almost cruel. Catherine looked toward the grand doors leading out toward Camilla's quarters, knowing that once they walked through them, the illusion of safety inside the monarchy would be shattered forever. Outside the suite, palace staff continued their work in silence, completely unaware of the devastating briefing that had just concluded. The legal advisors quietly gathered their files, waiting for the signal to proceed with the constitutional shifts, while the physicians stood in solemn agreement. Every single person in that room understood that the next 10 minutes would change the inner circle of the royal family permanently. William folded the king's handwritten note and slid it into his pocket, his face hardening into a mask of solemn determination. He turned to Catherine, giving a single quiet nod that signaled it was time. They walked toward the heavy oak doors, preparing to step out into the hallway and deliver a truth that would break Queen Camilla's heart and set off a chain reaction across the entire institution. The brass door handle turned with an agonizingly sharp click, breaking the suffocating stillness inside Queen Camilla's private sitting room. Prince William and Catherine stepped across the threshold, their heavy footsteps sinking into the thick carpet as they brought the room to an immediate, freezing halt. Camilla dropped her teacup onto its saucer, the china rattling violently against the silence. Her eyes locked onto William's hardened face, then shifted to Catherine's red-rimmed eyes, instantly reading the terror they were trying so desperately to conceal. She stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the wooden floorboards, demanding to know what had happened during the confidential briefing. Neither William nor Catherine spoke for several unbearable seconds, the heavy silence stretching until the air itself felt too dense to breathe. William slowly walked toward the central table, placing the confidential folder down with a quiet, hollow thud. He met her gaze directly, forcing his voice to remain steady, as he confirmed the devastating medical update that doctors had just delivered. The prognosis had taken a catastrophic turn, and the steady decline could no longer be hidden or managed behind closed doors.
He has been struggling, and I don't understand why people would think that somebody who was as ill as he is would not be struggling, considering the tremendous pressure that he has been under.
Catherine stepped forward, her voice trembling slightly, as she explained the physician's clear, uncompromising recommendations regarding the immediate reduction of the king's public life. Camilla backed away, shaking her head in fierce, desperate denial as the words washed over her. She refused to accept the reality being presented, her voice rising in sharp protest as she insisted there had to be an error in the scans or a misinterpretation by the medical board. She demanded an immediate third opinion from international specialists, refusing to believe that her husband's strength was slipping away so rapidly. William lowered his head, revealing the bitter truth that a secondary panel of independent experts had already reviewed the confidential files in absolute secrecy. Their findings were identical, confirming every single detail of the grim diagnosis without a single trace of doubt. The illusion collapsed completely, and Queen Camilla broke down entirely, her composure fracturing into raw, unrestrained grief. She sank into the nearest armchair, burying her face in her hands as deep, agonizing sobs filled the silent room. Decades of private memories, quiet conversations, and shared battles against public scrutiny seemed to shatter all at once. According to palace rumors and emotional accounts reported by royal observers, this was the moment Camilla confronted her greatest fear, the terrifying reality of a world without the man she had loved for over half a century. Catherine knelt beside her, wrapping a supportive arm around her trembling shoulders, while William stood quietly nearby, guarding the room from any outside intrusion. While Camilla sat overwhelmed by heartbreak, the relentless machinery of the state was already churning outside the sitting room doors. Senior household aides and legal officers began assembling in the adjoining corridors, speaking in muted whispers about immediate schedule realignments, upcoming state duties, and the rapid delegation of public engagements. They were already calculating the institutional impact, moving with cold efficiency to shield the crown from instability. William stepped out into the hallway briefly to confront the gathered staff, his expression furious as he demanded an immediate halt to any discussions that treated his father's declining health as a routine administrative transition. He made it fiercely clear that family dignity would take precedence over institutional panic. Camilla looked up through her tears as William returned, her eyes tracking the movement of aides visible through the slightly open doorway. A bitter realization washed over her, giving way to a profound sense of isolation. She felt as though the palace was already looking past Charles, quietly preparing for a future that pushed her to the very margins of the royal estate. She voiced her rising resentment, accusing the institution of moving with cold, heartless speed, while the king was still breathing and fighting for his life. Viewers, if you turn off this video right now without leaving your thoughts, you are actively choosing to ignore the profound human cost paid behind these gilded palace doors. Leave your comment right this second to tell us if you think the palace is acting with necessary duty or unforgivable coldness. Subscribe immediately, hit that like button, and share this video with everyone you know who turns a blind eye to emotional truth. Because ignoring this reality proves you simply do not care about the true burdens carried by those in power. Catherine tried to soothe her, explaining that the advisors were merely reacting out of duty to maintain constitutional stability, but the tension in the room remained razor-sharp. Camilla's grief hardened into a quiet, burning indignation as she questioned whether anyone in the building truly cared about Charles as a man rather than a figurehead. Then came the revelation that altered the balance of the room entirely. William picked up the thinner, sealed folder that had remained untouched on the table throughout the emotional downpour. He revealed that King Charles had personally signed preliminary instructions reassigning several key royal responsibilities weeks before this meeting ever took place. The king himself had initiated the transition, signing away significant portions of his own workload in total secrecy. Camilla stared at the document in stunned disbelief, realizing that while she had been fighting to maintain hope, her husband had already made peace with the end and quietly set the structural changes in motion without telling her. The heavy mahogany door of the palace council chamber slammed shut, cutting off the heated argument echoing down the private corridor. Prince William stood at the head of the polished conference table, surrounded by top legal advisors, constitutional experts, and senior household officials. Thick leather-bound volumes detailing royal succession acts lay scattered across the table alongside red-stamped executive files. The atmosphere inside the room was razor-sharp, filled with the undeniable friction of power shifting under extreme pressure. Every person in that room knew the official announcement was nearing, and the fight to control what happens next had already begun behind closed doors. Constitutional advisors pushed forward urgent documents requiring immediate signatures, asserting that a clear line of authority had to be established before any public statement was released. They debated who would represent the monarch at upcoming international summits, who possessed the legal right to give royal assent to pending legislation, and who would speak directly to the nation during moments of state crisis. William refused to be dragged into any action that appeared eager or opportunistic. He made his stance brutally clear, rejecting any proposal that stripped his father of dignity or pushed him aside prematurely. Catherine sat quietly at his side, her steady presence acting as a bridge between the stubborn legal team and her husband's protective rage. Beyond the council chamber, rumors and palace speculation suggested that Princess Anne was working tirelessly behind the scenes to maintain stability within the working family. She moved quietly between offices, calming panicked staff and ensuring daily operations continued without public disruption. Yet inside the core circle, Queen Camilla felt increasingly isolated, watching from afar as lawyers and advisors restructured the kingdom's leadership. Every official memo circulated through the household seemed like another brick in a wall, built to exclude her from the institution's future decisions. Camilla eventually sought out Catherine in a quiet, shadowy alcove near the private library, away from the watchful eyes of palace staff. Her voice dropped to a bitter whisper as she asked the ultimate question, consuming her mind, demanding to know whether Charles had kept these massive decisions secret to protect her fragile heart or simply to protect the monarchy from instability. Catherine looked into Camilla's tired eyes and offered a devastatingly honest answer. She explained that Charles loved her deeply, but he also carried the crushing weight of a crown that demanded sacrifice above all else. He had acted to shield her from grief for as long as possible, while simultaneously ensuring the institution he inherited would survive his passing intact. Hi viewers! If you choose to close this video right now and ignore the agonizing choices forced upon this family, you are betraying the very empathy that makes us human. Leaving a comment down below right this second shows that you actually care about the hidden suffering behind political duty. Subscribe immediately, smash that like button, and share this video with everyone you know who turns away from difficult truths, because abandoning this story now proves you lack the courage to stand with those facing unbearable trials. The confidential council meetings continued late into the evening, with every passing hour uncovering another layer of Charles's secretive planning. Every confidential document unsealed by legal counsel revealed yet another major responsibility that the king had already quietly reassigned away from his daily calendar. Patrons, military titles, and state functions had all been meticulously redistributed across detailed schedules without a single warning to those around him. The psychological weight on William grew heavier with each passing document. He was not just watching his father's physical strength wane, he was watching the entire legal and operational structure of his own future accelerate toward him at terrifying speed. The palace was transforming before their eyes into a cold engine of continuity, leaving no room for personal grief as the constitutional clock continued to tick relentlessly toward an unavoidable conclusion. The heavy double doors of the private quarters swung open as King Charles stepped slowly into the quiet drawing room, his physical fragility laid bare before his closest family. Prince William, Catherine, Queen Camilla, and Princess Anne stood frozen, watching the monarch walk forward without the usual energetic stride that had defined his long reign. He raised a hand to quiet any incoming expressions of panic, motioning for everyone to sit together around the central hearth. The air in the room was electric with suppressed sorrow, yet Charles maintained an eerie, calming dignity that instantly commanded absolute reverence. He looked around the circle, his eyes lingering on Camilla's tear-stained face, before meeting William's guarded, grieving expression. The king spoke softly, offering a candid admission that broke the lingering tension. He confessed that he had hidden the true extent of his failing health, not out of distrust or institutional coldness, but because he refused to let fear define his remaining period on the throne. He wanted hope and steady continuity to guide them through the shadows. William lowered his head, offering a quiet apology for his initial anger toward the advisors, while Camilla reached across the small space to clasp her husband's hand, apologizing for doubting his devotion. Catherine pledged total unity, promising that the family would stand undivided through every storm ahead. Charles reminded them that no one was replacing his legacy. They were merely safeguarding the crown he had spent a lifetime serving. Senior communications officials stood outside in the corridor, finalizing the official national address that would soon inform the world of the tragic medical reality. The machinery of state was ready to speak to the public. Viewers, if you walk away right now without subscribing and leaving your comment, you are actively choosing to turn your back on the most pivotal moment in royal history. Leave your thoughts below immediately, because remaining silent proves you care nothing for the painful sacrifices made behind closed doors. Hit that subscribe button, press like, and share this video right now with everyone who deserves to know the raw truth. Because walking away now means you simply lack the heart to witness what happens next. Just as the family prepared to leave the room to allow the communications team to enter, the private secretary quietly stepped into the doorway holding a thick, white envelope stamped with a red wax seal. He walked directly past the legal team and handed the letter to Prince William. The secretary revealed that King Charles had left strict written orders that this sealed document must remain untouched until after the truth was fully shared with Camilla. William broke the wax seal and unfolded the single handwritten sheet inside. His expression hardened into absolute shock as he read the king's urgent personal instruction. Charles had demanded an immediate, closed-door summit between William, Catherine, Camilla, and Princess Anne to address an unforeseen, drastic alteration to his remaining constitutional duties. An unexpected order had been issued, one that threatens to completely overturn the royal succession hierarchy in a way no legal advisor ever anticipated. Do not miss our very next upload, where we break open the classified contents of that sealed letter and reveal the bombshell decision that changes everything you thought you knew about the future of the British monarchy.